I grew up in a small village nestled in the rolling hills of southern Italy, where life flowed to the rhythm of the seasons. Cobblestone streets wove through rows of pastel-colored houses, their weathered facades telling stories of generations past. The air was often perfumed with the scent of fresh basil, sea salt, and the warm embrace of baked bread, a sensory tapestry that still lingers in my memory. Our home was modest, a sturdy stone house with creaky wooden floors and a terracotta roof that seemed to glow under the Mediterranean sun. My father was a carpenter, his hands roughened by years of shaping wood into furniture that would last lifetimes. My mother, a seamstress, sat for hours at her sewing machine, her foot pressing the pedal in a rhythmic motion that seemed like a heartbeat of its own. Their lives were marked by devotion, not only to their work, but to their family and community. Each callus on their hands was a testament to sacrifices made in love. Faith had its place in our home, though not in the deeply spiritual sense that some might imagine. It was more like a whisper than a roar, present but understated. We attended church on holy days, lit candles for the saints, and recited prayers before meals. For my parents, these rituals were as much about preserving tradition as they were about seeking divine connection. For me, they were a backdrop to a childhood filled with curiosity and wonder. My days were a kaleidoscope of simple joys. I remember the way sunlight would dance across the waves of the nearby sea, transforming the water into a canvas of shimmering golds and blues. I can still hear the laughter of my friends as we played soccer in the square until the stars began to peek through the evening sky. The stones beneath our feet were worn smooth by generations of footsteps, and the village bell marked the passage of time with a comforting regularity. My family instilled in me values that would shape my character: hard work, respect, and kindness. But beneath the surface of this idyllic life, there was a quiet mystery I couldn't quite grasp. Faith, as my parents lived it, was an anchor for tradition, but it didn't stir my soul. It sat on the edges of my awareness like a book left unopened on a shelf, waiting for its time. Even as a child, I had a restless curiosity, a yearning to understand the world beyond the familiar. I would climb the hills that cradled our village, marveling at how small everything looked from above. The houses, the winding streets, even the people. From that height, it seemed impossible to imagine that life could be anything more than this small, close-knit world. The evenings in our home were warm and predictable. My father would return from his workshop, his clothes carrying the scent of sawdust and varnish. My mother would hum softly as she prepared the evening meal, the kitchen filled with the savory aroma of herbs and simmering sauces. We would sit together at the wooden table my father had crafted with his own hands, sharing stories of our day. There was laughter, the occasional gentle disagreement, and always the sense that we were bound together by something unspoken and unbreakable. Yet, even in those moments of connection, I sometimes felt an ache I couldn't explain. It wasn't sadness, nor was it dissatisfaction. It was more like a whisper in the stillness, an unformed question that hovered just beyond my understanding. What lay beyond the horizon of this life? Was there more to the world than the rhythm of work, meals, and sleep? These thoughts came and went, fleeting as the clouds that drifted across the sky. As I grew older, I began to notice the quiet resilience of my parents. Their lives were marked by an unspoken acceptance of hardship, a stoic determination to make the best of what they had. Yet I couldn't help but wonder if they, too, felt the same unspoken yearning that stirred within me. Did they ever question the simplicity of their faith, the rituals they followed without deviation? Or had they found contentment in the life they had built, a life that seemed so small and yet so full? The village itself was a reflection of our family, a mosaic of familiar faces and unchanging routines. There was the baker who always had a smile and a warm loaf of bread ready for the children, the fisherman who told the same stories year after year, and the elderly woman who sat by her window, knitting and watching the world pass by. Each person played their part in the fabric of our community, their lives intertwining like threads in a tapestry. For all its simplicity, life in our village had a rhythm that was deeply comforting. Yet as much as I loved my home, a part of me always felt like an outsider, as if I were looking in on a story that wasn't quite my own. That feeling would follow me into adulthood, a quiet companion that I couldn't shake, no matter how full my life became. If this story has touched your heart so far, I invite you to join our growing community. Subscribe to our channel and give this video a like to help us share these messages of hope, faith, and inspiration with more people. Together, we can create a space where stories like this bring light and connection to all. Adulthood came swiftly, carrying with it the weight of responsibilities and expectations. By my 30s, I had built what many would consider a good life. I worked as a school teacher, helping young minds navigate the intricacies of language and mathematics. My days were filled with lesson plans, chalkboards, and the infectious laughter of children. Teaching gave me purpose, a sense that I was contributing to something larger than myself. At home, life was no less fulfilling. Claudia, my wife, was my anchor and my compass. Her smile could soften the hardest of days, and her laughter filled the spaces of our modest home with warmth. Together, we raised two beautiful children, Luca and Sophia, who were the very embodiment of joy and wonder. Our days followed a predictable rhythm: mornings of packing lunches and hurrying out the door, afternoons of soccer practices and piano lessons, and evenings of family dinners filled with laughter and the clinking of plates. Yet despite the fullness of my life, a quiet discontent gnawed at the edges of my happiness. It was subtle, a faint whisper that grew louder in the stillness of the night. It wasn't dissatisfaction with my family or my work. I loved them deeply. Rather, it was a question that lingered in the recesses of my mind. Is this all there is? Faith, or the lack thereof, provided no answers. The rituals of my childhood had not grown into a living connection with the divine. Jesus, whose name I had whispered in childhood prayers, felt like a distant figure, a character from history rather than a present reality. The void in my heart deepened, an unspoken longing for something more, something I couldn't yet name. It was on a late Friday evening, as the world around me settled into the calm of the weekend, that the catalyst for change arrived. I was driving through the quiet streets of our village, the hum of the car engine the only sound accompanying me. The stars were hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds, and the air carried a cool stillness that seemed to mirror my thoughts. I had stopped by the corner bakery to pick up Claudia's favorite pastries, a small gesture to bring a smile to her face after a long week. My mind wandered to the weekend ahead, filled with its usual rhythm of chores and family time, when a sudden flash of headlights in my rearview mirror jolted me back to the present. The car behind me was speeding, weaving recklessly between lanes. A surge of annoyance flickered through me as I slowed, hoping to let the driver pass. Instead, the vehicle veered closer, its headlights glaring like a predator's eyes. My heart began to race, unease settling in my chest. Before I could react, the speeding car clipped my rear bumper, sending my vehicle into a chaotic spin. The world tilted, the screeching of tires and crunch of metal filling my ears. Time seemed to stretch, every second laden with the weight of what was unfolding. The car slammed into a concrete barrier with a force that felt like a giant fist striking my body. Then silence. A heavy, all-encompassing silence that swallowed the world whole. I was aware of the stillness, the eerie absence of sound and movement. It was as if the universe had pressed pause, leaving me suspended in that breathless moment. As I sat there, the weight of the crash pressing into my chest, my thoughts turned to my family. Claudia's smile, Luca's boundless energy, Sophia's sweet voice, all flickered in my mind like a slideshow of the life I feared I might be leaving behind. My awareness began to fade, the world above me receding like the shoreline seen from a sinking ship. A strange calm washed over me, unexpected and profound. The fear and panic that had gripped me moments before dissolved, replaced by a sensation I can only describe as a warm embrace. It felt as though I were being cradled by the universe itself, carried gently into the unknown. Darkness. Not the kind that breeds fear, but one that felt vast and infinite, like an ocean stretching beyond the edges of comprehension. I was floating, or at least, that's the only way I can describe it. There was no weight, no pain, no sense of time. I was untethered from the body I had known my whole life, and yet I was still me. At first, I wondered if I was dreaming. The thought flickered through my mind like a candle in the wind, brief and insubstantial, but dreams had always carried a certain haziness, a distortion of reality. This, however, was different. There was a clarity to my awareness, sharper than anything I had ever felt before. My thoughts moved freely, unhindered by fear or confusion. From the depths of this vast nothingness, a light appeared. Faint at first, no larger than a distant star, but with each passing moment it grew stronger. It didn't push against the darkness, rather it transformed it, turning the void into something warm and inviting. I felt a pull toward it, though I wasn't walking in the way I had on Earth. It was as if my very being was being drawn forward by an unseen force, carried by something greater than myself. The closer I got, the more I began to feel it. Peace. But not the kind of peace that comes in fleeting moments during a quiet afternoon or after a long day. This peace was alive, wrapping itself around me like a gentle embrace, seeping into the very fabric of my existence. Every burden I had ever carried, every regret, every doubt, one by one, they began to dissolve, as though they had never existed in the first place. And then, the light spoke. Not in words, not in sound, but in something deeper, a knowing, a message that filled me not just with understanding, but with something more profound, recognition. I had spent my life questioning faith, treating it as a distant concept rather than a living presence. But here, in this place beyond the limits of the physical world, I realized the truth. Faith had never been distant. I had been the one who was far away. As the light expanded, shapes began to emerge within it. At first, they were little more than silhouettes, soft and undefined. But then, faces. Familiar ones. People I had loved and lost. My grandmother, her kind eyes filled with the same warmth I had known as a child. An old neighbor who had passed away years before. Even a childhood friend I had barely thought of since we were young. They were waiting. Not just standing idly, but with a purpose, with an awareness that transcended human understanding. There was no sadness in their eyes, no longing, only joy, only love. And beyond them, further into the glow, something even greater was waiting for me. A presence, one that I knew, though I had never seen it with my own eyes. Tears, not of sadness but of recognition, welled up in my eyes. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't lost. I was home. If this story has moved you, let's share this blessing together. Give this video a like and comment below to receive a blessing in your life today. And let us know which city you're from so we can send even more prayers your way. May light and love always be with you. As I moved closer to the light, the very air around me seemed to hum with an energy that was beyond sound, beyond language. It wasn't something I heard. It was something I felt, resonating through every fiber of my existence. I wasn't simply witnessing something extraordinary. I was part of it, woven into this tapestry of light, warmth, and presence. And then, the presence I had sensed before became undeniable. Emerging from the brilliance, a figure took shape, not in the way we see on Earth, but in a way that went beyond sight. I didn't just look upon him, I knew him. Before I could even process what was happening, I was overwhelmed by the purest, most unconditional love I had ever experienced. A love that did not judge, did not condemn, only embraced. It was him. Jesus. I had never seen his face before, not truly, but in that moment I realized that I had known him my entire life. The contours of his presence were written in every moment of kindness I had ever received, in every act of love I had ever given. He was the embodiment of peace, of mercy, of everything I had been searching for without even realizing it. His eyes met mine, and it was as if every question I had ever carried simply melted away. He knew me, all of me, every flaw, every failure, every doubt I had ever whispered in the depths of my heart. And yet there was no disappointment in his gaze, only understanding, only love. And then, without a single spoken word, he showed me. The light around us shifted, moving like waves upon an eternal ocean, and suddenly, I was no longer in that celestial realm. I was witnessing something far beyond myself. A vision unfolded before me, one that was both beautiful and terrifying in its magnitude. I saw the earth, vast and full of life, yet intertwined with something unseen by human eyes, a spiritual reality layered over the physical world, an eternal battle taking place in silence, unnoticed by those who lived their daily lives. I saw angels, radiant and powerful, standing guard over families, over homes, over people who had never even realized they were being protected. Their presence was like fire and light combined, unwavering and full of purpose. But then, I saw the shadows, dark entities lurking at the edges of the world, whispering into the hearts of those who had unknowingly opened themselves to deception. They moved through the streets, unseen but deeply felt, in the moments of despair, in the temptations that led people further from the truth, in the quiet voice of doubt that crept into even the most faithful souls. I watched as people, unaware of this unseen battle, made choices every day that either strengthened the light within them or pulled them deeper into the darkness. And then, I saw something else. Marks. Strange, glowing symbols that appeared on the hands of every person in this vision. Some shone with a golden light, almost pulsing with life itself. Others were dark, jagged, their edges twisting with an ominous energy. I felt the weight of what I was witnessing. Jesus turned to me, his presence grounding me even as my soul trembled at the enormity of what I was being shown. And then he spoke, not in sound, but in a way that filled me from the inside out, carrying the weight of eternity within it. These marks are not imposed. They are chosen. Every thought, every action, every word leaves its imprint. Many do not realize that they are marking themselves with each decision they make. I looked closer and saw it was true. People were unaware of the marks on their hands, but each time they acted in love and kindness and truth, the light on their palms grew brighter. And every time they surrendered to fear, to anger, to deception, the darkness upon their hands deepened. It was a choice made every single day with every small decision, with every turn toward love or away from it. I turned back to Jesus, my heart pounding with the enormity of what I was beginning to understand. And then the vision shifted again. The world faded, replaced by something even more powerful, something I was not yet ready to comprehend. The vision before me blurred and shifted, like a veil being drawn back to reveal something even greater. The celestial light that had surrounded me softened, and I found myself standing in a vast space unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't Earth, yet it felt more real than anything I had ever experienced. The air itself carried a presence, as if it was alive, humming with an unseen power that resonated deep within my soul. Jesus stood beside me, his gaze filled with both love and urgency. Though no words had been spoken yet, I knew. He was about to reveal something I was meant to understand, something that would change everything. Before us, the vision unfolded once more. I saw the world, but not as I had known it before. This time I saw it through spiritual eyes. It was a place of great beauty, yet also of great struggle. Every soul, every heart was engaged in a silent battle, one they could not always perceive. Some were surrounded by light, angels walking beside them, guiding them, interceding for them even when they didn't know it. Others, however, were weighed down by darkness, not because they had been condemned, but because they had chosen to live unaware of the divine love that was always reaching for them. I saw families torn apart, hearts burdened by sorrow, and people walking aimlessly, searching for meaning in places where it could never be found. And yet, amid the struggle, I also saw hope. There were those who chose love, even when it was difficult. Those who forgave, even when they had every reason to hold on to pain. Those who sought truth, even when the world tried to blind them. And with each of these choices, I saw their light grow brighter, their souls marked by something eternal. Then Jesus turned to me, and for the first time he spoke aloud. I have brought you here to understand the weight of every soul, the urgency of every choice. His voice was unlike anything I had ever heard, not just sound, but truth itself, resonating through me, filling every empty space in my heart. Many walk in blindness, unaware of the war being waged for their hearts. But you have seen. You have been shown the reality beyond what is visible. And now, you have a choice. The weight of his words pressed upon me. A choice? What choice could I possibly make in the face of something so vast? As if sensing my thoughts, he lifted his hand, and the vision shifted once more. I saw myself, lying on the road, my body broken from the accident, paramedics working frantically around me. I saw Claudia, her face pale with worry, her hands trembling as she clutched our children close. I saw my students, their young faces unaware of how close I had come to never returning, and I understood. Jesus was offering me a mission, to return, to tell them what I had seen, to help them understand the choices before them. His gaze never wavered as he asked the question that echoed through my very soul. Will you go back? I hesitated. Not because I was afraid, there was no fear in this place, but the weight of what Jesus was asking me to do felt immense. To return meant to leave this perfect peace, this overwhelming love, this presence that filled every space within me. Here, there was no pain, no doubt, no uncertainty, only light, only truth. But to go back, to wake up in the broken body I had left behind, to carry this knowledge in a world that did not see what I had seen, that would be difficult. Jesus waited, his gaze patient yet filled with a deep knowing. He wasn't forcing me. He wasn't commanding me. He was offering me a choice. And then, in an instant, I saw it. My family, Claudia sitting at the hospital, hands clenched together in desperate prayer, whispering my name through trembling lips. Luca and Sophia, confused and afraid, not understanding why their father had not come home. My mother, tears rolling down her weathered face as she clutched the rosary she had carried for years. I saw my students, their seats empty as they waited for me to return to the classroom. My neighbors, unaware that the man they greeted every morning had brushed against eternity. And I saw something else. People I had never met, faces unknown to me yet connected to me by something unseen. People who, one day, would hear my story. People whose lives would be changed not by me, but by the truth I had been given to carry. I understood. This was not about me. It was never about me. It was about them. Jesus spoke again, his voice like a river flowing through my soul. You have seen what many will never see. You have been given a gift, not to keep, but to share. The world is in need of light, and I am sending you to be a witness. You will not be alone. I am with you, always. I felt the words settle deep within me, and with them came certainty. I had to go back. I turned to him, my heart full of love and gratitude, and with a single thought, I said the words that would change everything. I will go. The moment I spoke, everything around me shifted. The light swirled, expanding outward, folding into itself like an ocean tide retreating from the shore. The warmth began to fade, replaced by a strange pulling sensation, a feeling of movement without direction, of being drawn through time and space yet without effort. The celestial world dissolved, the weightlessness disappeared, and then suddenly there was pain. The harsh, jarring pain of a broken body, of lungs gasping for air, of a heart struggling to beat once more. A deafening sound filled my ears. Voices, machines, movement. My body was heavy, my limbs unresponsive, as if I had been dropped into something too small, too limited to contain all that I had just experienced. I tried to open my eyes, but the brightness of the hospital lights stung. A sharp beep echoed in the distance, steady and rhythmic. I could feel something pressing against my face, an oxygen mask. My chest ached with every breath. Then, through the haze, I heard it. A voice, soft, shaking, desperate. "He's awake. He's awake." Claudia, her voice cracked with disbelief, a sob escaping her lips. And then another voice, this one younger, trembling with emotion. "Papa?" "Luca." I blinked, my vision swimming as I tried to focus. Through the blur, I saw them. My wife, my children, their eyes wide with shock and relief, tears streaming down their faces. I had returned. If this story has touched your heart, I invite you to be part of our growing community. Subscribe to our channel and like this video so that more people can hear these messages of faith, hope, and transformation. Together we can share light in a world that needs it. You are not alone. Welcome to our family.